3, 2, and 1.
Hi, I'm Cherisa Applehunt.
And I'm Brie Restivo. We're live here at REMAX Capital Properties. And we're going to be talking about the importance of curb appeal today for both buyer and seller.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the cool thing about obviously doing the lives here is we get to talk a little bit about everything. And so today we're going to jump in what curb appeal means to us as real estate agents, what curb appeal means as a buyer coming in.
Yeah.
When we work with a seller. So that's kind of what we're going to jump into today. So, Brie, let's talk a little bit about you defining that curb appeal as a seller. What's that mean to you as a selling agent?
So as a seller, I think that curb appeal is super important because it's the first impression that we're giving to, the buyers. So whether it's pictures, it's online listings, the first thing that you see when you see that sign in the yard, you want to make sure that the house looks good, well maintained, manicured, and looking fresh.
Yeah, have you ever went past a house that that's not for sale, but as an agent you're like, man, if that house would go on the market, it would sell. Just looking on the outside of it.
Absolutely.
There's a couple houses in town that you drive past and you see their yard is perfect.
Yep.
There's no trash anywhere.
Exactly.
Their paint is looking good. I'm like, wow, that how easy it would be as a selling agent to list that house.
Yeah.
And I just think of that a little bit of what does that take to maintain that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So almost like a yearly, like I think about when I break it down as curb appeal, as a list, working with a lister or someone that's selling the property, I almost think about like, what do you need to do yearly? What do we need to do monthly? And I mean, now weekly.
Weekly, yeah, especially in the summer months, when it's nice out. So
kind of jumping into those. And I mean, think about grass. We have to cut our grass every week.
Yeah.
And when you're not, when you drive past a house and you see that house, maybe their sprinkler system wasn't on.
Right.
So those are big things as a seller to kind of make sure that you're maintaining that curb appeal and the look of it. I mean, It goes every part of that look.
Well, and I think too, as a buyer, you see a well-maintained house, you're on the outside, you're also going to think and assume that the inside is just as well-maintained. So I think that that's why it's important too for buyers.
Yeah, I love working with buyers. I like listing a house, but I love working with buyers. And some of my favorite things is to go open the house and then wait for them to walk in and see their first reaction.
Yeah.
And I think you hear a lot of, oh, check out the grass, or hey, there's rock against the foundation, or there's a sprinkler system that's been maintained. I think that's kind of cool to hear because they have not even set foot in that house yet.
Yeah.
So, and that emotional connection, tell me a little bit on like as a buyer, what's that kind of mean? You working with a buyer, that emotional connection, what's that mean?
Yeah, so I think buyers, they make emotional decisions, right? So if they see a house from the outside, the exterior, they're already making that emotional connection with the home. They're already seeing themselves living in the house prior to even stepping foot inside of it. So
I mean, I think too is like we bought 4 houses, and every single time that it was an emotional decision. I could see me raising my family here,
right?
Or I could see, us having, other, hangout areas or whatever it is.
Or look what we could do to this,
Yeah.
and like how can we make this ours, and
in different parts of our life, we bought in different houses that made sense for it, and so
same.
All emotional connection, and I think a lot of it started walking into the front of the house or the curb appeal.
Just seeing it from the outside. Seeing the picture online.
Yeah.
Scrolling through Realtor or whatever,
You, Brie, as an agent, what's that first impression kind of mean to you? Like, what's that mean, first impressions?
Kind of just what we were talking about earlier. I think that first impressions can significantly influence the perception of the property, right? And what you think is going to be inside and how you're going to make your decisions based on that first impression.
Yeah. I think almost like I look at a house and I like to break it down like almost like I'm a to-do list kind of person. Are you a to-do list person?
Yeah, in fact, write things on your list.
So you can check it out. Yes, that's the So I look at, seeing a house that maybe as a buyer or a seller, and I think a to-do list, right?
Yep.
So I think, is your window screens, how, like you've all walked past a house or drove past a house where let's be honest, a dog got it, or a bird,
Yeah.
or an animal or critter. And so, how's those screens look? What's the is there paint that needs to be touched up?
Right.
So,
Like you said, is the yard mowed? Are the bushes trimmed? Are the,
seasons, like,
Oh.
we live into different night and
Yeah,
day
exactly.
seasons. So, are we needing to make sure that if we're walking in and there's so much snow that you can't get up to it, you have to walk around it. Those are things to really consider as a seller. Or in the middle of the summer, do you have your weeds picked out?
Yeah. Or is the sprinkler system on, like you said before? So
I go into fencing sometimes because you look around and we live in wind. We live in wind.
Yeah.
We live where there's wind. And sometimes the wind is, it just gets the best of us. And so I think, if you go in the front of a house and you see the fencing and you're like, ooh, that's bending a little bit, or that's moving, or that needs a good fresh paint. That's all curb appeal.
it is.
I don't know. I mean, think about just items around the car, like around the house, right? Like I'm part of an HOA and I'm the vice president. And so one of the things in our, agreements, covenants is no cars that aren't running and those kind of things. But sometimes, you see that in town that those aren't covenants, and they might have insurance and might have title still, but.
Well, and I think it just could be a bit of a turnoff when all of those items are collecting in your front yard or in the view of, the public. And it takes away from the house. So I think it's really important to
maintain it.
And keep stuff picked up, clean it up.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite thing ever is watching a house sell within 3 days in an area, and then, next thing you know, someone else is going to be selling.
Yeah.
Because if that house sold within 3 days, I know in the next couple days another one is going to want to list, or, there's always that revolving door. But it's really hard when a house is sat for, 2 months because the curb appeal, and the house inside might be absolutely beautiful.
Right. But back to first impressions. Like if the first impression in the pictures or online or as you're driving by, if it's not cleaned up, maintained, manicured, it's going to be hard to see past that. So.
No, I agree. I think too is like, as a curb appeal, as a seller, I think is I'm going to go list your house, and I want to be able to be your agent that lists it. I want to have that open line of conversation that says, how do we get you more money?
Right.
How do we get you to sell this house faster? How do we make sure that this house stands out in photos? Because our ultimate goal is to get you out of that house and sell that house as fast as possible.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think that, with curb appeal, it does boost the perceived value of your home. I really think that it can justify an increase in price, and really just boost the value based on what it looks like. So.
Well, and I mean, hard thing is if it's just you, right? My husband works a lot. He's on the road a lot. And so what if you can't maintain it? Like, what's that look like as coming in?
I mean, I think that there's plenty of options. For one, there's so many landscaping businesses in town. I know a couple people just here at REMAX whose husbands do landscaping. So I think that's also an option. But there's also a lot of really inexpensive things that I know if you don't have the time, but maybe you don't have the money for stuff.
Yes.
What can you do? Well, just throw some fresh mulch down. I mean, that's not a huge expense. Paint your front door. Wash your windows. It could be as simple as that.
Power wash your fronts. Like, you don't realize between seasons, or if you're doing yard work, power washing the driveway and the sidewalks, it is.
Especially out in the county. It's a dust storm out there. So, I mean, that stuff's good to keep up on.
No, I agree. So, I know we kind of talked a little bit as a seller and as a buyer and the curb appeal. Once again, we are live here at REMAX. So, if you're following along, we're talking about curb appeal and what's that mean.
If you have any questions,
shoot it our way.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to kind of think about a little bit of lights outside. Like, it could be all kinds of lights. It could be Christmas lights. It could be the different tone lights. So let's talk a little bit about what light can do for curb appeal. It could do a lot.
It could do a lot. Especially when you're not having like cohesive lighting, you have warm light here and you have a, I don't know what they call bright white light. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the cohesion is kind of a big deal, don't you?
I agree. And I also think fixtures, right? So we talked about paint and making sure it's you're selling your house what it looks like, right? You're not having hot pink color on a door here when it doesn't match, right? So we're having that same colors. But also I think fixtures, because if you're going in and you're having these big, bulky, fixtures and they don't have lights attached to them or they don't work, I think that's the first thing that we should, I love looking at houses on walks when I go and walk around town.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big thing, is those are little details that really stick out to me personally.
Yeah, I agree. Mailbox.
Yeah, just an updated mailbox.
Yeah.
Making sure that it's it's not the one that's fallen off or broken down. You even have one.
Yeah. Dude, where's it at?
Where's that located? Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you brought Christmas lights up a little bit, because what are your thoughts about seasonal decorations?
I mean, I have children, so
Yeah.
if I'm one for Christmas lights, I'm one for any type of holiday decor, but I think there's always got to be a little bit of a fine line.
Right.
I mean, if you're wanting to list your house and you're doing photos in November and come around and those same photos are on the market and it's now February and your house hasn't sold and you have Christmas decorations. I think that is a fine line of finding that a little bit, but I also think it really kind of shows, what the house can look like too.
Agreed. And maybe, people, again, put themselves in the house, like they see themselves there. What would they do differently? Or, oh, I really love those lights. That would be awesome if we could,
have
that, yeah.
But I also think too is we live in such a market where houses are either on the market for 2-3 months and they're saying you can't figure it out, but you go back and look at a couple of those photos and you're like, oh, it was Easter, you guys had some Easter blow-ups or whatever. And so I think,
and then I think that could be, because I'm also on the side where I'm like, I do sometimes think neutral's better.
Yes.
I mean, you want to be able to market your home in all seasons, right? So just because it's Christmas for one day and a couple weeks, like,
I agree. But I also am the one that's like, I have children.
I get that.
I get it.
Same, yeah.
And I would never want to put my house on the market and be like, we can't decorate. And so I think that kind of goes back into maybe not for the photos.
Unless those decorations are packed.
Yeah. Yeah, then I think my husband would accidentally pack those decorations so he wouldn't have to.
Exactly.
That's so good. I think that is a hard thing. I think that's a decision between you and your agent.
Yeah.
And having that trust with your agent of saying, hey, I think we could sell it faster, or I think having that, I think, is a big part of that.
I agree. Yeah.
So, I mean, other than, just the curb appeal and the outside, let's talk a little bit about roof for a second on curb appeal. Okay. Because we live in a wonderful place that gets hail.
Yeah.
And so I've dealt with a couple, where you get to choose the color of your roof. How do you choose that?
Black is best.
Yeah, that's my theory too. But there's so many
opinions.
colors, exactly. Yeah. But there's also, if you look, you might get a ton of different colors out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing too. Is really deciding the color of your house.
I agree, and I think it's really important to be able to choose those neutral colors for the exterior of your house, for your front door, for the gutters, and choosing a roof color that actually matches.
Well, and like your neighborhood matches your neighborhood.
Right.
You're coming in and you have a neighborhood that is really dark tone houses, which is fine. You're allowed, if you're HOA, whatever. But if you're wanting to pick like a bright color, I think that you're going to stand out, but that's also kind of making sure that you're not standing out too much for a resale almost.
Absolutely.
So I think those are some cool things to think about. Gutters. I think the color of gutters. You've seen a lot of new builders getting some fun ideas and getting that chrome and that.
Yeah.
Have you
or
seen
even
those?
like the downspouts,
Yes.
the cool downspouts that have the rain chains and stuff coming down. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, some of those new builds look awesome.
Yeah.
And doing a couple of those new ideas, but that's not always for everyone either.
That's true.
And so I think that's the hard part is when you're doing a couple of these updates and you're thinking about what's great for my house, if you're planning on selling in the next 3 to 5 years, or if you're just having that in mind a little bit of what that can
what can that look like in the future? And you don't know who's going to buy your house. So I think it's important to kind of be able to,
have a little bit of understanding too. I think the biggest thing is have you seen I don't know, I was driving down a neighborhood and you go out, it's trash day, right?
Yeah.
Lined them up. And so, but also I think about when that goes away, where are you putting your trash bins?
Right.
I mean, are you storing them on the side of the garage tucked away?
And depending on what your neighborhood you're in, depends on, some neighborhoods don't allow trash cans to sit outside, so.
Are they going inside your garage?
Yeah.
Or do you have to have it?
Stinky.
Yeah, no, I live out in the county, so it's in a dumpster tucked away. But I think those are big things of when you're thinking about curb appeal and when you're buying a house, you don't think about a trash can or a dumpster.
Right.
But also I think about is when you're driving down and you're seeing that, right in front of the house, you see 2 dumpsters right outside the garage door and you're like, oh, let's move those to the side. Let's put those somewhere else kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys plans for Father's Day? What do you got going on?
Father's Day, I think there's a lot going on around town, which is pretty cool. My husband and I are going to the Post Malone concert, but that is not in town. So that's Sunday. So we're looking forward to that. But what about you?
So we go to Glendale a lot. And so we actually my husband's doing a golf tournament. I think it's in Douglas or Wheatland. I'll have to look it up. It's I think it's in, but the EMTs for Glendale, they're doing a fundraiser. So my husband's going to be doing that, and I'm going to go to my brother's baby shower. I'm going to get out of town for a little bit and go to my brother's baby shower and just kind of
get away for a minute.
Yeah, let Dad do his own golfing stuff.
Yeah.
Me and the girls go and do a little fun baby shower, and then we'll meet back up at Glendale on Saturday. But yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah. Brewfest is this weekend. I know everybody loves Brewfest. I think that's both Friday and Saturday this weekend.
And that is also, that's Friday the 13th and
Saturday.
Yeah, so Friday, yep, so both. So, and that's just down at the depot. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are also doing Friday night at the plazas then.
Yes.
Perfect. It's those crazy nights.
Crazy nights.
Is this artist that's coming in?
Yep.
Super cool. That is, It's a free concert that comes in, and it's Friday night at the plaza. It starts at 6 p.m. There's so many cool things that they do down there. They have food trucks. They have a beer tent. They have, the balloon lady. My kids love the balloon. We're in line for hours.
Well, and I think enjoy the warm weather. Get out. It's finally nice outside. So, that's such a cool thing to go do on the weekends. If you don't have anything going on, get out, enjoy the weather, and there's actually things going on around town. Yeah,
Hells on Wheels Rodeo and the Chuck Wagon are out at the Archer Complex.
Okay.
So Friday the 13th, gates open at 5, dinner's at 5:30, and then the rodeo starts at 7. So I think you can go online and purchase tickets. There's still tickets available for that. So if that's, you want to get a little
something
rodeo.
You want to do? Yeah. That's always fun.
A little fun, Wyoming.
Fun little impromptu.
Yeah, just throwing it out there for you.
I think Black Dog Animal Rescue also is having an event, a cornhole tournament at Blue Raven Brewery. They're also incorporating a block party. I guess they're shutting down the block for a part of it too. So I think that could be a fun activity on Saturday.
I love good cornhole. I might be slightly competitive.
Way.
Yeah, just a little. It might be the coach in me or the athlete or both coming together. Yeah. But I honestly I can have some fun with some cornhole.
Yeah.
So that would be a lot of fun. I know Lego convention. So if anyone is into Legos, they're having a convention at the Ice and Event Center on Saturday the 14th. So
cool.
That's gonna be kind of fun to kind of get outside. That's a whole, you have everything kind of going on. You have Breer Fest, you have a concert, you got a rodeo.
Yep.
For you fathers out there, this seems like a great weekend. And us moms can just, enjoy hanging out with everyone at the same time.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Enjoy the warm weather.
Any other plans for the summer at all for you guys at all?
Lake. We're big lake people like you, so I am looking forward to being able to go camping and
get away for a little bit.
Yeah.
So once again, this is Cherisa and Bri.
Yep.
And we are live. So we want to thank you guys for joining us today to talk about curb appeal.
Hope you weren't yawning or too bored with anything, but
get out this weekend. So thanks you again.